Yo, what's good? Twisted here with Opener Sorcery, and today I'm going to go ahead and talk about mudras and hand signs. Now, this is on the heels of a friendly discussion that was had between Devi, Lono, a couple other friends of ours, and myself earlier on the night, and I just felt, you know what? Might as well go ahead and talk about the topic for the channel. So, pretty much, before we get into deep into mudras themselves, let us go ahead and talk about the nature of the hands and what they happen to do spiritually from a metaphysical understanding and standpoint. So, the two hands that you have, the dominant and the receptive, most people are right handed, so that would be their dominant hand. Some people are left handed. I think the split is about 90% right handed, 10% left handed dominant. Those figures could just be approximated or may have changed the last time I heard that sort of statistic. But generally speaking, when it comes to what each of our hands are, specialized towards in performing different sorts of magic, spiritual practices, energy work, which I definitely go ahead and say check out number 10, Opener Sorcery, you could say episode number 10, where the conversation with Devi, Drew, our buddy, and I going ahead and talking about energy work and, different things related to it. And one thing that was mentioned was a practice utilizing the hands. You can go ahead and detect your aura with it. That my one friend Kenny went ahead and showed me a while back. Now, when it comes to the nature of the hands and what purposes they serve, the dominant hand, that is more so of the masculine force. So dominant, it's going ahead and pushing outward. It's going ahead and imposing its will. It is going to be the push, whereas the non-dominant hand, which in many cases is the left hand, if most people are right-handed, or vice versa, that is going to be the receptive hand. That is going to be the one that pulls. That is going to be the one that draws in, receives energy in many cases. Now, the masculine being the dominant, the feminine being the, receptive receiving hand. And in getting that sort of general understanding and context out of the way, let us go ahead and also understand, like, from an elemental standpoint, in performing mudras and hand signs, what exactly do each of our fingers, because obviously our hands are made up of our fingers, what sort of elemental attributions do they happen to have? So, when it comes to our thumbs, let's start there. That is the fire element. And it seems that the Planetary Association, when looking into palmistry, a form of divination done by reading of the palms, which I'm not going to delve into in this one. I think Devi or Lono at some point are more so better acquainted to talk about that. But when it comes to the thumb, that is the fire element. That is a masculine force that is imposing, your will, that is getting action done, taking action. The same thing can be said about the trigger finger, the pointer finger, in that it is masculine and takes that action. It is done to make things occur. That is attributed to the element of air. Both of those are masculine in nature. And it is attributed planetarily, though, to the planet of Jupiter. Now, when we move on to the middle finger, it is attributed to the fifth element, right? So if you think of a pentagram, the other four elements, so fire, water, air, earth, the four conventional basic elements, at least from a Western standpoint, Those are the other points of the pentagram, whereas the aether, the fifth element, the culmination of all of them, and the unknown energy, more so pure energy, that's at tippy top of the pentagram. So, in a similar sense to our hands, the longest finger is the middle finger, and it is right there, smack dab in the middle. The element of the aether, the heavens, that right there is the middle finger, and is governed by the planet Saturn, which, in our understanding of traditional planetary cosmology, and at least the Western tradition, even in Eastern, to whatever sort of extent, Saturn is considered the most high of the traditional 7 planets. Once again, going by the Western model. Now, when we get to the ring finger, that right there is the element of the earth. And funny enough, while it is the element of the earth, the planet, quote unquote planet, I should say, that's associated with is the sun. And last but not least, we have the element of water, which is associated with the pinky finger. So the pinky finger is water. And the planet that is associated with this finger happens to be Mercury. So, in making these sorts of parallels, I know those who are aware of their planetary associations to different elements and zodiac signs and all that, this may seem a little bit out of whack. And truth be told, I do not comprehend why these associations are made the way they are when it comes to the hands, when it comes to, the act of palmistry, or when it comes to observing mudras, but this is from the information I've gathered from multiple sources. Now, in understanding that right there, both, the nature of the feminine and the masculine for both the hands themselves and the fingers, we can go ahead and talk about mudras themselves and what purpose they serve. So, mudras in of themselves are different hand gestures, signs, and symbols that are performed for particular sorts of tasks or calling upon different energies, changing your energetic state, pretty much trying to tap in to different aspects of things in order to go ahead and, optimize yourself for that. So, while that was a pretty long-winded and convoluted way of me saying it, yeah, different mudras do different things. And when we think about, mudras in themselves, they're actually called the yoga of the hands, which actually happens to be the subtitle of a couple books that have come out on the subject. And now, people who are aware of yoga, you likely have utilized mudras in your practices, different positions and poses and all that. And whether you do yoga or not, or whether you're a magical practitioner or not, any spiritual sorts of people, or even if you just go ahead and are a regular, going by organized conventional religion type person, or even if you aren't spiritual at all, even if you're an atheist, we're all doing mudras. We're all doing hand signs all the time. We're all exhibiting body language. So, for example, to go ahead and give more so of a mundane, exoteric, more so like a, regular life sort of thing. If you go ahead and you do the okay hand symbol, if you go ahead and just say, yeah, I'm A-okay. You're taking the pointer finger, you're taking the thumb, you're putting it together, and then the rest of the fingers are kind of like, just left unconnected, loose. They're right there. That in of itself actually is a mudra. That is from the best I can pronounce it, the Gyan Mudra or Gyan Mudra. That is the one of the mudras pertaining to knowledge and wisdom. So if you go ahead and do that one, you are essentially, the idea is that you're tapping in to that vibration, that frequency, that mode of being. Now, to go ahead and think more so of a spiritual example, or of at least in a Western sense, of where you may be familiar with this particular hand sign, is the sword mudra. And this is something that is, of course, utilized in the Eastern sense, at least from what I've delved into, different sorts of chi and energy practices and Taoism. They, have practices and have talked about using the sword mudra, or the sword finger, as it's called. But back to how it's been represented in a Western manner. We here, at least in the States, or, in the Western world, a lot of us come up in Abrahamic religions. So Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and Christianity is the biggest religion in the world, right? So what type of iconography do we usually see a lot? We see a lot of Christian iconography of Jesus, or at least the son of the Pope, Cesare Borgia, that is utilized as the model for the quote unquote white Jesus. Now, that's not to say that Jesus Christ did not exist. That is up for you to decide and discern. But it is historically known that the basis of the Jesus that we usually see iconography of is that of Cesare Borgia, the son of Pope Borgia. In any case, when you look at a lot of the iconography of Jesus, he's usually going ahead and doing the sword mudra. And how do you perform the sword mudra, since I've been talking about it for a good minute? What you do is you take your pointer and your middle finger, and you point it up, and then the rest of you bend your ring finger and your pinky finger, and your thumb as well. I do not believe they necessarily have to be touching, but they may go ahead and touch. I could be wrong about that, but in any case, the sword mudra is utilized much in that iconography, where you see, Jesus raising his right hand. And also, when we look at even tarot cards, there, is different mudras utilized, different hand symbols by different cards of the major arcana, and I believe the minor arcana in some cases as well. When it comes to the sword mudra in particular, though, you have the card of the Hierophant, who is utilizing the sword mudra, going ahead and raising it up. Now, for those who are aware of the card, the Hierophant, it is one of order. It is definitely a masculine card. It is the paternal, orderly figure that is very much in tradition and is going ahead and keeping things on the straight and narrow, for better or for worse. Now, in terms of the sword mudra and other representations of it, I actually had it for a moment. Give me a moment to reclaim my train of thought. What exactly it was? Oh, yes. The Baphomet. So, if you've seen the symbol of the Baphomet, which in of itself is attributed a lot to the Satanic Church and Satanism, and it's all black magic and left-hand path and all that sort of thing. But when you actually get the comprehending of what it represents, it is actually a balanced being. It is not necessarily dark. Even if it has goat horns and it has breasts and, it looks all weird to those who are not used to iconography. It's symbolic iconography. It actually happens to go ahead and perform the sword mudra itself with the right hand, which in most people, once again, is the dominant hand. And that representing the masculine element of it. Now, the left hand is pointing downward, and left hand, in this case being receptive, is the feminine. And when we go ahead and we talk about and comprehend the natures of the masculine and the feminine, right? Relative to one another, the masculine is of the higher and the feminine is of the lower. Not to say that one is more important than the other, by no means, but in terms of its interrelation of taking energy, taking the unmanifest, and bringing it down into the manifest. So when we look at, once again, from the Western structure of things, how the elemental chain goes about, we start off at the top with, start off at the top with, if we're going to add the fifth element, then we start off with the aether, of course, which that particularly doesn't have a gender. We start off with the aether, the unknown. Or if you do want to add a gender to it, potentially it's feminine in relation to this. That has to do with the unknown, the primordial waters, and all that sort of thing. But we're just going to go ahead and say it's genderless. It's not a particular, masculine, feminine, sexual energy. We start off with the aether, and then we come down to the fire. And then we come down below that to the water. We come down below that to the air, which is the masculine once again. And then finally it manifests on the earth, receiving it, which because it is receiving it, it is the feminine. So, Mother Earth, all that sort of thing, because it is a manifestation point and it is the lower in relation to other things that are higher, it is considered as the feminine. So, going ahead and talking about those sorts of things. Oh yes, another example of how the sword mudra is utilized is not only just in those sorts of iconography, but in the actual performing of a Western magic ritual called the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, or conversely, its counterpart, the lesser invoking ritual of the pentagram. So LBRP and LIRP, respectively. You actually utilize the sword mudra to go ahead and, whether it's actually physically in drawing it out in front of you, or mentally, you are drawing out, carving out a star, a pentagram of blue flame. And depending on which one you are doing, the banishing or the invoking, then it will be clockwise or counterclockwise in which you draw this pentagram, but you're doing so with the sword mudra itself. So that's just a couple examples of different mudras and their usages, how they're represented, their purposes, and I'm not going to lie, I am by no means an expert on the mudras themselves. When it comes to different hand gestures, yes, we all have different hand gestures that we utilize, even for those of us who enjoy rock music, right? Or, just like doing the devil horns. That in of itself is a mudra. I honestly, at this present moment, do not know what it signifies, right? A lot of people, once again, similar to the connotation of the Baphomet symbol, right? They see that, the devil horns, the goat horns, that being satanic in its nature and malevolent and detrimental, It could be drawing upon those energies or could mean something different. I personally cannot recall what that may be at this moment. But this is for you guys to go ahead and look into and to take up for your own research. At the same time, we can go ahead and look at, even if now this one has definitely more so of a negative connotation, is flipping someone off. Taking that middle finger and you flip someone off. Showing them the backside of your middle finger and knuckle, right? Now, I don't believe this is considered an actual mudra from an Eastern standpoint, but at least just from my general esoteric understanding of things, I would believe it to be a mudra that is a hand sign, and you're calling upon a certain energy in of itself, whether it is the modern attribution of, oh yeah, go fuck yourself, or anything like that. I don't know, but let's just go ahead and say that in the framework of, yeah, go F yourself, that it happens to have this sort of effect that, if it were to take place like that, this is more so theorizing on my part for this particular instance, that you are taking the ether, and while the palm is faced towards you, you're going ahead and say, drawing upon the spirit of another individual, or you're going ahead and, drawing upon the spirit of another individual and being drawn towards your direction, that you're pulling from them in that sort of sense. Or you could even say that, once again, this is me theorizing that within the principle of, what people call the law of attraction, or the golden rule, as Christ said in the Bible, do unto others as you would have done unto yourself. If you go ahead and give someone the middle finger, because the palm is facing inward, you may go ahead and be causing harm unto yourself because of that sort of manner of things. And, the general understanding that, we are all our own human beings, our own individuals, but once again, we are all connected in some way, shape, or form. We are all derived from the same source. Whether you want to say from a scientific point of view, it's the Big Bang, or you want to say that we all come from God the Father in an Abrahamic Christian sort of sense, or we all come from the nothingness in a sort of, Gnostic sense or Eastern sense, or whatever the case may be. Those are just some thoughts about mudras and hand signs. Oh, and I definitely want to go ahead and mention this, being that I grew up watching this particular show, that this show right here happens to utilize a lot of different mudras and hand signs, and that being Naruto. So similar to how I utilized the example of Naruto when it came to the thought forms video, they happen to go ahead and incorporate hand signs even into it. So when different people perform the different ninja arts, the jutsu in that show, they perform different hand signs. Now it may be a singular hand sign, or it may be multiple hand signs in combination with one another to go ahead and perform a particular, move, a particular action. So a couple examples of that being, the fire style, fireball jutsu, or the water style, water dragon jutsu, or, even like the crossing of the fingers that I'm sure people who watch Naruto, everybody knows the shadow clone jutsu, or even the admittedly funny 1,000 Years of Death, where it's, taking, like 2 pointer fingers, and I do not necessarily know how the other fingers overlay each other at the moment because I'm not looking at a visual picture or anything like that. But you go ahead, you take that, you shove it up someone's butt, and in the case of Kakashi doing that to Naruto and Sasuke and Sakura in the series, like, it's part of their training, part of their discipline to be like, oh yeah, like, you think you're gonna get me? Well, I'm gonna fool you. I'm gonna get you with that one. Which I believe later on in the series, I think it may be in a filler episode in Shippuden, Naruto happens to get Kakashi back for the torment and torture he gave him back in his days as a student. So yeah, there goes another example of, anime incorporating these sorts of things, and, you know, this being the means which they access their chakras. And, you can utilize different mudras to activate different energies. And in mentioning chakras, you can tap into the different seven chakras that we all possess within us. Of course, root, sacral, solar plexus, heart chakra, throat chakra, third eye chakra, and the crown chakra themselves. Actually, if I just take a moment right here, I probably could go ahead and pull up a list. It may go ahead and okay. Does it say? Okay, no. This particular image does not necessarily have the names of these different symbols, these different mudras associated with the chakras. Actually, I see right here the OK symbol, the Gyan mudra that I was referring to beforehand. I believe that is associated, from what I see here, with the root chakra. So that is a mudra you can utilize for going ahead and tapping into that. So I guess that kind of goes and brings us a bit full circle, in terms of the topic of mudras. So pretty much I'll leave it off at that. And, that was mudras and hand signs. And, hopefully later on, Devi or Lono, as I stated before, will talk about palmistry as a means of divination and a practice in of itself. So with that, this is Twisted with the Opener Sorcery, and stay frosty, nieces. Peace out.